Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another DADCAW. It is currently 10:28 in the morning of the 1st of November, 2020. We're starting off this month a little goofy in nature because of an internet outage that will not be resolved until tomorrow, the 2nd. But of course, we've got big news coming up on the 3rd, not just domestically here in the US, but with regards to this channel. Of course, we have some stuff going on. We're going to be finishing the mod stream streak. We're going to be moving on to engine development later on in the month. And obviously, the 3rd is also the cutoff point for Full Toilet, when all of the campaign maps that people have been able to put together are going to be played at some point after the 3rd, but it'll be due before the 3rd, basically. So, what's been going down since? Well, I already released a DADCAW some months ago, maybe, talking about how I was no longer interested in pursuing Deliverance. That has not changed in terms of the concepts or context of Full Toilet. Obviously, we're not going to have time to do that in the context of Full Toilet. We only have a couple of days. So that being said, we definitely need to get some work done on the engine of Brood War, I guess you could call it. Some changes that we planned and have planned for a long time include the portrait data extender, which is currently in development. After that, we'll be moving on to the in-game unit and bullet limits to finally get rid of the 2,000, or it's like 1,700 unit limit in-game. Finally raise that way beyond what we initially had. And yeah, I mean, that's going to be a big deal unto itself. We'll see what other limits we can raise after the fact. But for the most part, that would equip us to actually be able to have large-scale battles, and then we can look at some AI limitations, like overall script limitations in terms of AI script arrays, extending those. That'll probably be a challenging task, but one that I think is worthwhile. And so ultimately, since we still have plans for Brood War after the 3rd of November, which initially wasn't exactly the case, or I wasn't sure if it would be the case, it was a bridge that we were going to cross when we're coming to it. Well, we are almost there. We've almost crossed that bridge. So we kind of have to figure out what we're doing. And we have decided, iQuare, Veek, and myself have decided to continue working with Brood War tools and with the engine for a brief amount of time so that we can equip it to at least handle large-scale maps on an individual basis. Think Nemesis Stormborn, all the issues that map had related to the engine, bullet limits and unit limits galore, all of the issues of the AI bugging out. In some ways, it was due to low-quality AI code, but in other ways, it was just because the script limit was reached and we could no longer progress and add more threads or anything like that. So obviously, in a perfect world, we would also extend the amount of map size that you have so that we can have even bigger maps, or the number of players that you have so that we can have 8v8s or something like that. Or we would extend the number of in-game unit entries and weapon entries that we have, similar to how we've extended sound effects and portraits and images and all that stuff. But those are a little bit separate, obviously. Those are like, data side things that will take a long time to complete. And at that point, anything that's really, really large scale, large scope, that isn't going to be immediately useful for small scale content production in the next couple months doesn't seem like an investment worth making, right? So we're kind of evaluating all of the potential tasks that we could undergo, that we could take on. We're trying to look at them through the lens of, is this going to help us in the very short term? Is this going to allow us to, improve the caliber of content we're able to make without requiring a large-scale rewrite of a lot of other code or something to that effect? And it's very different from the long-term, very, very zoomed-out view that we have for the new engine, where everything is going to be built from the ground up, with the idea that it will at some point transition into open source territory, and everybody will be able to look at it and make alterations and whatever else. But beyond that, that is going to be a haven for RTS content for years and years to come. And obviously, that Brood War could have been that anyway, but the source code never got out. So that's sort of where we're at this point. That's where our heads are at. We're really trying to consider these two different approaches to these two different tasks. Maintaining and equipping Brood War for larger scale content in the very near future is certainly something that I think is worthwhile, because until the engine is complete and until Hydra is re-implemented in that engine, it is going to be some time, before we are able to play any sort of high quality RTS content if we don't equip Brood War for higher quality stuff and get Hydra operational in that environment as much as it can be, you know? And maybe this opens the floodgates, as it were, or really just opens the door that anybody can traipse through to produce their own version of, you know, some sort of large scale multiplayer mod or some sort of opportunity to just make a campaign using an existing mod or using the original game without any mods. You know, there's opportunities galore, and we want to facilitate those opportunities as best as we can, while also recognizing that that is essentially what the new engine is supposed to be anyway, and it's going to be a hell of a lot less limited than what Brood War is. So while Brood War is, as Veek so famously put it, just a giant pile of stacked diminishing returns, working with Brood War is not completely without some sort of merit, some sort of payoff. What you'll get at the end of the day is something that can at least be seen as an adequate tech demo or stepping stone into a new, brave new sort of dominion, a new, what's the term? New territory. You're going into a new area and saying, you know, screw any limits. The only limit is my imagination. We're going to see what we can come up with. Like, that's what I'm really excited about. So time will tell if it ends up being something that we can, you know, have bear fruit in some way. That is still certainly something that I'm interested in myself. But this is sort of the last call of Brood War. That's what the title of this DADCAW is, after all. And one of the things that I really wanted to drive home when I talked about our plans for Brood War, when it comes to like the more distant future, obviously we're planning on abandoning it in favor of our new engine. But for the next couple months, maybe even the next year, we hope to have a significantly less limited game to work with so that we can at least make some higher quality modded content so that we can have some stuff to play during Fraud Nights and so that we can have some content out there like perhaps a revisit to Inconsummate or reactivating Deliverance or just making something brand new that I haven't considered yet. Time will tell if this ends up being a rabbit hole that swallows us up for longer than what we actually have. But we are still 100% committed to starting engine development this month. So that'll be something that I talk about a little bit more in the channel map. But aside from that, I think really we're just going to have to see how things go. It could be the other way too, that the engine ends up being super easy to get started, such as the point that maybe it becomes more operational more quickly than we could have imagined. And as a result, we abandon Brood War sooner. I don't know, right? It's still an unknown thing. But we will be getting started with it. And more information on that topic to come, obviously. So that has been the DADCAW for the 1st of November. Hope you appreciate the information that we're getting at and the new direction we're taking as far as Brood War goes. Eventually, we'll be taking the direction to the nearest exit once our new engine is operational. And, you know, it's a sort of a if you build it, they will come situation. Well, we're building it so that we can come. Bye.